Hello, dear soul. If you've made it here, you're probably living through one of the most challenging and confusing moments of your spiritual journey. Perhaps you're feeling like you've completely lost connection with everything that once made sense. Your spiritual practices seem empty. Your intuition is silent, and that feeling of being on the right path has simply vanished. You might be wondering if you did something wrong, if you lost your gifts, or if the universe simply abandoned you. This feeling of spiritual emptiness is so real and distressing that it can make you question your entire journey up to this point. But I need to tell you something very important. You are not lost, you have not been abandoned, and you are definitely not doing anything wrong. What you're experiencing is not a sign of failure or regression. It is, in fact, one of the most powerful indicators that you are evolving to a completely new level of spiritual consciousness. This dark night of the soul you're living through is sacred. It's necessary, and it's especially common in souls who carry deeper missions and elevated purposes. You are not alone in this experience, and what seems like a frightening void is actually a sacred space being prepared to receive higher frequencies and an even more authentic connection with your true path. Today, we're going to unveil together the secrets behind this transformative phase, and I'm going to show you exactly why this period of apparent disconnection is actually one of the greatest blessings of your spiritual journey. If this resonates with you, leave a comment sharing how your experience with this feeling of spiritual emptiness has been. Your courage to share might be exactly what another soul needs to hear today. Let's begin by understanding what it really means to feel disconnected from your spiritual path. When you were a child, you probably had a natural and spontaneous connection with the invisible world. Perhaps you talked to beings others couldn't see, had vivid dreams that seemed more real than reality itself, or simply knew things without knowing how. This connection was pure, unfiltered, without questioning. But as you grew up, the world began teaching you that these experiences weren't normal or real, and you learned to silence that inner voice to fit in. For years, you may have lived disconnected from this part of yourself, until something, a crisis, an awakening, a transformative experience, brought you back home to this spiritual connection that was always within you. And then came that golden period of your spiritual journey, when everything seemed to flow perfectly. Your meditations were deep, your intuition was sharp as a blade, synchronicities happened constantly, and you felt like you had finally found your place in the universe. You devoured spiritual books, participated in rituals, practiced manifestation techniques, and saw tangible results. It was as if the universe was constantly whispering in your ears, guiding every step, confirming every decision. You felt special, chosen, connected to something much greater than yourself. This phase was real, it was genuine, and it was absolutely necessary to establish the foundations of your spiritual journey. But what you might not have known is that this phase of spiritual honeymoon was just the beginning of something much deeper and more transformative. Now you're living something completely different, and this can be frightening. Suddenly your meditations seem empty, as if you were just sitting in silence without any real connection. Your spiritual practices, which once filled you with energy and clarity, now seem mechanical and lifeless. You might be praying, performing rituals, or trying to connect with your guides, but it's as if there's a thick veil between you and the spiritual world. It's like you're shouting into a cosmic void and receiving no response. This experience can be so intense that you begin questioning whether everything you lived before was real, or if it was just your imagination creating connections where none existed. But here's the secret that few understand. This phase of apparent disconnection is not a punishment. It's not a sign that you've lost your gifts, and it definitely doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. In fact, it's exactly the opposite. When a soul is preparing to carry higher frequencies and assume greater spiritual responsibilities, it needs to go through a process of energetic recalibration. It's as if your energy system is being completely reformatted to support much higher voltage. During this process, the old connection needs to be temporarily interrupted so that a new connection, much more powerful and authentic, can be established. Think of this like a butterfly inside the cocoon. During metamorphosis, the caterpillar literally dissolves. It ceases to exist in the form it knew to transform into something completely new. If you could look inside the cocoon during this process, you would see only an apparently formless mass without structure, without clear identity. But this dissolution is not destruction, it's creation at its deepest level. Similarly, when you feel like you've lost your spiritual identity, when you can no longer recognize yourself in the person you were before, you're not losing yourself. You're transforming into a much more elevated and powerful version of yourself. During your childhood and adolescence, you probably felt different from others in ways you couldn't explain. Perhaps you were more sensitive to people's energies, picked up others' emotions as if they were your own, or had sharp perception about situations that hadn't yet fully manifested. These experiences, which at the time may have seemed like a burden or strangeness, were actually clear signs that you carried special abilities. Every moment you felt misunderstood, every time your sensitivity was seen as exaggeration, every experience of feeling like a foreigner in your own world, all of this was preparing you to deeply understand the human experience and develop the compassion necessary for your mission. In your adult life, before this current period of apparent disconnection, you probably lived experiences that confirmed your spiritual abilities. Perhaps you helped people through intuitive advice, had visions or dreams that manifested in reality, or felt a deep connection with specific spiritual practices. These experiences weren't coincidences. They were the universe showing you your innate abilities and preparing you to trust your gifts. Every time you followed your intuition and obtained positive results, every moment you felt the divine presence tangibly, every synchronicity that confirmed you were on the right path. All of this was building a solid foundation of spiritual confidence that is now being tested and strengthened. But now you're in this phase where it seems like all of this has disappeared, and this can generate deep anguish. You might be wondering if you lost your gifts, if you did something to displease the universe, or if you simply imagined all your previous spiritual connection. This doubt is understandable and completely normal. It's as if you had learned to walk and suddenly your legs no longer responded to your commands. The feeling of helplessness and confusion is real and valid. But what you need to understand is that this phase is not about loss. It's about preparation for a completely new level of connection and spiritual power. When souls with elevated missions go through this experience, it's because they're being prepared to work with much more subtle and powerful energies. The connection you had before, although real and valuable, was like learning the spiritual alphabet. Now you're being prepared to write cosmic poetry. This transition requires you to develop much deeper and more mature faith, a faith that doesn't depend on constant external signs, but is based on unshakable trust in the divine process, even when you can't see or feel immediate evidence. During this period, you might notice some subtle signs that this transformation is happening. Your dreams might be more intense and vivid, even if you can't interpret them completely. You might be questioning fundamental aspects of your life, your work, your relationships, your purpose, in ways you never questioned before. There might be a persistent sensation that you're between worlds, not completely belonging to the material world, nor feeling connected to the spiritual world. These are not signs that something is wrong. They are indicators that you're going through a profound spiritual metamorphosis. Another important sign is that even feeling disconnected, you can't simply abandon your spiritual search. Even when your practices seem empty, something within you continues pushing you to maintain them. Even when you doubt everything, a deep part of you knows. You can't simply go back to living as if spirituality didn't exist. This persistence, even in the absence of immediate rewards, is one of the clearest signs that you're going through a genuine spiritual initiation, not a loss of connection. It's important to distinguish between this natural evolutionary pause and a true deviation from path. When you're going through spiritual recalibration, even feeling empty, there's a quality of expectation, a subtle sensation that something is preparing to emerge. It's like being in a dark room knowing the light is about to be turned on. On the other hand, when someone has truly deviated from their path, there's a sensation of numbness, loss of genuine interest in spiritual search, and a tendency to become completely distracted with purely material matters. During your journey so far, you developed an energetic sensitivity that is now being refined to much more subtle levels. Before, you might have needed obvious and dramatic signs to feel the divine presence. Now you're being trained to perceive cosmic whispers, to capture energetic nuances that are almost imperceptible, to trust guidance that comes through very subtle sensations. It's as if you're learning to hear music played at frequencies that are at the limit of human perception. This training requires you to develop much more refined sensitivity and much deeper confidence. Your past experiences of spiritual connection weren't lost. They're being integrated at a much deeper level. Every moment of clarity you lived, every experience of divine connection, every spiritual insight you received, all of this is being woven into a new form of consciousness that is much more stable and powerful than the previous one. It's as if all these experiences were ingredients that are now being slowly cooked to create something completely new and much more spiritually nutritious. The feeling of being lost that you might be experiencing is actually a sign that you're freeing yourself from a limited spiritual identity to embrace something much greater. When you felt constantly connected and received frequent signs, there was a part of you that identified with being the spiritual person, the intuitive person, the connected person. Now you're being invited to transcend these identities and connect with something much vaster and less definable. It's a process of death of the spiritual ego for the birth of much more expanded consciousness. During this period, you might feel like you're walking in thick fog, where each step requires tremendous faith because you can't see the path ahead. But this is exactly the quality of faith you need to develop for your greater mission. Anyone can trust when they see clear signs and receive constant confirmations. But only truly spiritually mature souls can maintain faith and keep walking when there's no external evidence they're on the right path. This is the faith that moves mountains, that manifests miracles, that transforms realities. Your childhood experiences, when you felt different and misunderstood, were preparing you for this moment. They taught you to trust your inner perception even when the outer world didn't validate your experiences. Now you're being called to apply this same trust at a much deeper level. You're learning to trust the divine process even when you can't feel or see immediate evidence that it's working. Adolescence, with all its confusions and questionings, was also preparation for this moment. During that phase, you learned that growing up sometimes means going through periods of uncertainty and transformation that can be uncomfortable but are absolutely necessary. Now you're going through a spiritual adolescence, a transition period between who you were spiritually and who you're becoming. And just like physical adolescence, this phase can be confusing, challenging, but also incredibly transformative. Every moment of doubt you're living now is strengthening your capacity to maintain faith in challenging circumstances. Every day you continue your spiritual practices, even without feeling connection, is building spiritual discipline that will be fundamental for your future mission. Every time you choose to trust the process, even when your logical mind questions everything, you're developing a quality of faith that is rare and precious. You're not wasting time or regressing. You're becoming spiritually stronger and more reliable for the universe. Now that you understand, this phase of apparent disconnection is actually a sacred recalibration. Let's explore how to navigate this period with wisdom and confidence. The first step is accepting the void as a sacred space, not as an absence, but as a different presence. When you stop fighting against this feeling of disconnection and begin honoring it as part of your evolutionary process, something magical happens. You create space for the new connection to emerge naturally. Practice sitting in silence, without expectations, without trying to force spiritual experiences, simply allowing this void to be exactly what it is. During your meditations, instead of seeking visions or special sensations, simply breathe and trust that something profound is happening at the most subtle levels of your existence. Maintain your basic practices, meditation, prayer, gratitude, even when they seem mechanical or empty, because it's exactly in these moments that you're building the most authentic and powerful spiritual discipline. The key to navigating this period is learning to recognize the subtle signs that the universe continues sending, even when you can't perceive them clearly. These signs might come through casual conversations that touch exactly on what you need to hear, repetitive numbers that appear constantly, dreams that carry symbolic messages, or simply an inexplicable sensation that you should take a certain direction. Begin keeping a spiritual journal where you note not just the big experiences, but also the small whispers of the universe. That song that played at the exact moment you needed to hear it, that book that fell in front of you at the bookstore, that person who appeared in your life precisely when you most needed guidance. These signs have always been there, but now you're being trained to perceive them at much more subtle frequencies. Trust that divine guidance hasn't stopped flowing. It has simply changed channels, and you're learning to tune into this new frequency. Develop a daily practice of gratitude for what you can't see or feel, but that you choose to trust is happening. Every morning, give thanks for the transformation occurring behind the scenes of your consciousness, even if you have no tangible evidence of it. Give thanks for the wisdom being planted in you during this period of apparent void, for the strength being built through your perseverance, and for the deeper connection being prepared to emerge. This practice of gratitude for the invisible is one of the most powerful ways to accelerate the reconnection process, because it aligns you with the frequency of divine trust. Remember that true faith is not believing when you have evidence. It's trusting especially when you don't have evidence. And it's exactly this quality of faith you're developing now. Create simple rituals that honor this transition phase, recognizing it as a sacred initiation rather than a loss. Light a candle every night and dedicate a few minutes to honor the courage you've been demonstrating by continuing to walk even in uncertainty. Write letters to your future self, expressing your confidence that this phase will pass and that you'll emerge from it stronger and more connected than ever. Practice the art of surrendering to the divine process, repeating affirmations like, "I trust in the universe's perfect timing," and "I allow my transformation to happen at the sacred rhythm that is best for me." These practices might seem simple, but they're creating an energetic bridge between where you are now and where you're going, facilitating the transition and keeping you aligned with the divine flow even when you can't feel it clearly. Finally, remember that you're not alone in this journey, even when you feel completely spiritually isolated. Thousands of souls around the world are going through the same experience at this moment, because we're living through a period of collective awakening that requires many people to go through this recalibration simultaneously. Seek communities of people who understand this journey, share your experiences with those who can offer understanding and support, and remember that your courage to cross this period is inspiring and strengthening other souls who are living similar challenges. Your journey through this dark night of the soul is not just about your own evolution. It's also about you becoming a beacon of hope and wisdom for others who will go through similar experiences. Trust that when you emerge from this period, you'll have not only a deeper and more authentic spiritual connection, but also the wisdom and compassion necessary to guide others through their own transformation journeys. Dear soul, we've reached the end of this journey of understanding, but in reality, we're just at the beginning of a new phase of your spiritual evolution. What you're living, this feeling of emptiness, this apparent disconnection, this confusion about your path, is not the end of your spiritual story, but rather the prologue to a much more powerful and authentic chapter. You haven't lost your gifts, you haven't been abandoned by the universe, and you're definitely not doing anything wrong. You're going through one of the most sacred initiations a soul can experience, the transformation from a spiritual connection dependent on external signs to an unshakable faith that flows from your own divine center. This recalibration phase is preparing you to carry higher frequencies, to serve at deeper levels, and to become an even purer channel of divine light in this world. Always remember that you are a chosen being, not because you're perfect or because you never face challenges, but precisely because you have the courage to keep walking, even when the path isn't clear. Your willingness to maintain faith during this dark night of the soul is the clearest proof that you carry a special mission on this planet. The universe isn't testing you to punish you. It's strengthening you because it knows you're capable of carrying greater spiritual responsibilities. Every day you choose to trust the process, even without tangible evidence, you're becoming more powerful, wiser, and more prepared for the extraordinary mission that awaits you. Your light hasn't dimmed. It's being refined to shine with an intensity you can't even imagine is possible yet. Now I need your active participation in this community of awakened souls. In the comments below, share with us what was the most challenging moment of this phase of apparent disconnection you're living, and how has this video changed your perspective on this experience? Your courage to open up might be exactly the validation another person needs to continue their own journey. If this content brought clarity and relief to your heart, Share this video with someone you know is going through a similar experience. Sometimes, a single message of hope can completely transform a person's journey. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive all the messages the universe has prepared for you through this sacred space. And if you feel you're ready to dive even deeper into this journey of self-discovery and spiritual reconnection, consider joining our member community, where we share exclusive content and create an even more intimate space to grow together. Until our next meeting, keep your faith lit, trust the divine process, and always remember, you are never alone in this journey. A luminous embrace, and may the light of your heart continue shining even when you can't see it. Namaste.